Hi all, this is a review of a few trades I did. Haven't done a video review of the trades lately because I found that this method of review is a little bit more comprehensive and useful for me. So that's why I haven't been doing as many video reviews, but I thought I might still occasionally do a video review, especially since some people have been interested in seeing how I review my trades. So what I do these days is I always go and assess my trade against this sort of checklist. I need to take trades at my planned area of interest. I should already identify the zone of where I will take the trade. That's a very important point in my trading. I cannot simply take trades that are not anticipated prices. So going on with this Euro Aussie buy, I usually trade the bigger time frame moves these days. So in this case, I was looking for a 240 buy up, right, just up to that high over there. The market area was pretty good, but it could be a little bit wider to account for swing failure type of entries. So swing failure type of entries are basically when a move down fails to go on lower, or a move up fails to go on higher, right? Especially given how weak this buy reaction was, this launchpad reaction was, I thought I saw in retrospect that in the review that the area must be a little bit wider, right? So, so in the hourly, I saw that due to this strong weaker move up by the buys and the relatively strong push down, that this may just be a small buy. It may not go all the way to the target. I was aware of this, right? And this has an impact on my SO management. So this kind of entry, this is a breakout retest entry, right? And what I think I found is that I can have more tolerance for drawdown and respect the initial SL for longer for entries that are based more on failure confirmation, right? On swing failure confirmation. But for breakout retest entries, I need very active SO management. And this is because for breakout retest entries, I expect price to move well, right? Move strongly from that retest area, right? That's the proof of genuine reaction at the breakout retest areas. Whereas for swing failure entries, all I need is a trap at the swing failure area, and this will be covered in future trades I'll cover in this video. All I need is a trap, and after the trap is confirmed, price can hover around for quite a long time if need be, but as long as it respects the swing failure SR, that is, it respects that the fact that the swing has failed, the trade is still on. So for those kind of entries, or swing failure type of entries, I can actually respect my initial SO and not be phased by a slower launch of the big move. Whereas for breakout retest entries, I should be very I should have low tolerance for just messing around at the key area. So this is an entry type in which I would have low tolerance for it messing around. This is not a swing failure entry on the higher time frames, nor on the lower time frames. So on the lower time frames, this was my entry. It was based off this little spike. So because of the overall reasons of why this is a smaller, weaker move up, and this may not be the big move just yet, and also because I was not so confident in taking 1% risk on this. I took half. Now, my entry, and part of the reason I took half is the entry was really based, the actual core entry idea, the technique behind the actual entry was based on minute 3 or minute 1 time frames. So because I'm going down so low to catch a potential 240 move, I took a half risk entry. Typically for 240 moves, I'll be taking M15 or M3 entries, right? But this was really like an M1 entry. M1 meaning minute 1. So I took that entry up that spike, and as soon as I take the entries, I'm got in the habit of thinking, what is the trade invalidation point as the trade evolves, right? Because I try and get out of trades as soon as possible, right? That's what I'm trying to practice lately. So at this point, okay, the trade invalidation is when this makes a lower high and a lower low, lower low and a lower high, right? Confirming that this is not the breakout, right? So if that happens, that would be the moment to get out. This was the actual entry on the minute 1 time frame. So it was very important because the entry was based on a retest of this little breakout over here, of this congestion zone. It was very important for price to move up very swiftly, right? So this SL probably could have been tightened already, just below that point, but I gave myself a little bit of breathing space. And the longer this consolidation happens without many lows, without lower lows, I thought the more confident I should be in this trade, right? But I should absolutely see evidence of buyers having the initiative in this kind of consolidation, and that is what I did see. So this was a very good sign. So this is something I mentioned. This is something I mentioned a couple of slides back. We'll come back to that in later trades as well. So this happened. Strong move up, excellence lines. SL moved up very logically because it should not go down now. Now over here also SL moved up. I think it was logical because of course I'm aware that this is all a cluster of resistance. It's kind of reacted well at this resistance so far. It hasn't really paid much attention to these resistances, so looking pretty good so far. And this small breakout has happened, and it has been consolidating above this little resistance turn support area at that alert line. So I thought SL2 was in validation point. That's where I had my stop loss. So in this one, it indeed went a little bit higher, and around here, because this is all happening at M15 resistance, and because this move up was not at the perfect area, considering how these buyers came in weekly, right? I required that either this move really shoots up, or if it has any trouble over here, I would be looking to get out, because the chances of it coming back down even to these lows and breaking it, I thought were quite high. And this was a relatively correct assessment, as we can see later. So around here, I'm thinking, okay, maybe this move up over here, this swing up, may be failing, right? This may be a trap. So the earliest sign of this being a trap is if this support fails to hold, right? So that would be the most aggressive exit. But I decided in my plans to have my SL still there, but I was aware of the top alert line being the most reasonable exit, because that would mean it breaks out of this little range, and a confirmed breakout of that is really the cue to exit. Now, in this situation, I saw that price had come down, and I had some doubt and uncertainty around this point about when best to cut the trade. So I marked myself this price plan to help, and it really did. So my exit plans were very, very simple. If price fails around this high, I would exit, and if price breaks down, I would exit on a retest, confirming that breakdown. So over here, it found a little bit of support and went higher, and this is when I sort of lowered my guard when I shouldn't have. This is still on the cards for swing failure and the move down beginning, right? Because it has barely penetrated this high. It has cleared this high, maybe taken some stops above that high, and come back down. So this is really a prime area for swing failure and traps. The fact that this move up has come up pretty strong, but failed to really achieve anything beyond this in terms of breaking this high, that's a trap. And so this was a very clear sign of potential swing failure. It's only confirmed when it breaks down this white line over here. And the fact that this is all happening at a logical resistance, I was looking to get out. So the exit actually happened a little bit late because I still had my SO at this SO3 area. I had moved it up, but I was just looking to see if the support would kick in again. But there was already sufficient information to avoid paying that risk of seeing more information and keeping positions on, because as soon as it broke down there, I think that would have been the best area to get out. This is not in retrospect, this is just using logic, right? So from a broader perspective, what we see is the price did indeed go a little bit higher, right? Now, my thinking here is, if I look at how strong that move up is and how it really did not respect these resistances and react at these resistances breakout areas, it actually went all the way up. But then, okay, maybe that means there's probably one more push up by the buyers because would the sells really begin from over here? That's the question then, given how strong these buyers have come in, right? So I guess that is one way of looking at it, of getting a better price. I'm just going to keep that in mind for now. I'm not going. I think for the next trade, if it happened like this, I would still get out as I did, because the risk of it going down straight from there and making a low and taking my SL is still high. I think I need more data to confirm whether this kind of holding on play for a slightly better price is logical in these situations. And I've characterized these situations, right? So you can read it if you want. Now, the higher time frame trade idea was spot on, and as it has been very recently for my trades. So I had marked my area, it reacted perfectly at that area, and it reached my target. So this happened later on. I did not take this one because I was already on a Aussie US sell, right? So the reason it worked is it did not work on this swing is because of these sellers over here. They actually broke that area, and these sellers were pretty strong. There needed to be a little bit more of a rollover, and that's why this was the area of entry. So I was aware of this when I took that initial entry, but that smaller buy still gave me some profit. So the key learnings here is characteristic. This is a really key learning. It's repeated in future trade, in other trades as well. Characteristic of trade invalidation signs for my different entry types. And I classified all of my entries into 3 types, and this has helped me a lot in terms of really quantifying my entry edges, right? So my entry types are just breakout retest, swing failure, and forceful breakout, right? So that is forceful breakout without waiting for any retest. I only take this last type of entry when there is at a precision. This is a precision entry technique. These two are not necessarily precision entry techniques. I only take this entry for precision, and some other criteria need to be satisfied. So that's all in my trading plan and everything. So that's it. Next one was Aussie US sell. In this one, thought it was a pretty well planned trade and well executed trade for the most part, with a bit of a slip up later on. So price was reacting in a very weak way, and I had marked this area of reaction, so I would only be interested if price reaches this box for the sell down. So due to this weaker move up, I felt a lot more confident taking the first instances of swing failure. I did not need to wait for any further rollover due to this weaker move up by the buyers, right? So I got a perfect reaction. On the 6-day it looked like this. The struggle up is much clearer, and of course if it weren't for the struggle up, I would have waited probably for some more rollover to happen. So on the 15, my entry was at a limit. I was thinking I should have a limit order as soon as these small buyers were broken. I was thinking I should have a limit order there, but I hesitated slightly when I looked at how strong the buyers were coming up over here. But I very quickly decided, okay, no, there's no reason to hesitate. This is a logical entry area. That's a trap. People have gotten trapped over there, especially since price broke these highs and never really held from a larger time frame perspective. So I got in at a slightly worse price, just a very 1 or 2 pips, 1 pip worse, or half pip worse. So I got in at a slightly worse price, but that's okay. Part of the reason for the hesitation was to see, okay, price was coming up very strongly. Maybe I can get a better price. So there's a little bit of greed over there, right? And that's not good. I realized in the precision scale of getting entries, right? In the precision scale of getting entries, I should just see the setup and use limit orders, and just hit it, because all the other information from the higher time frame bias and everything is already confirmed. It's very likely that on the precision scale, price will not wait, right? So I extended the target to the daily zone because that's very logical. So I already saw in my scans before that this was a daily sell that would be happening. So this is the daily target down to these lows. Now the grinding down, the grinding move down didn't really faze me as I was very confident in the overall high time frame bias, and I respected it, right? SL was unmoved, right? So over here, you see that most of the Aussies were showing weakness or were at key zones, but no big move had begun yet. And Aussie US was a clear leader because it's showing the lower high, lower low. And yeah, I thought that was the best pair. So this was further proof that Aussies were indicating signs of weakness or being in weakness zones on the high time frame perspective as well. But all of this was not considered so much for trade entry, and it's mostly based on the viability of the setup, and this Aussie US was set up in terms of how I analyzed it. And I don't pay too much attention to correlation, especially for taking entries, especially in cases where I'm trying to take a leading pair, that is a pair that moves first. So my approach to correlation, I'll mention it in a few slides actually. So the USs were also acting in favor of the trade for the most part. On the higher time frame, US strength was showing, but it looked like it was going to fade out soon. You know, if you look at US yen, it's going highs near the resistances. So maybe this is actually why Aussie US hung around for so long before the big breakout move, right? So the sell happened, and around this area, I anticipated this to spike up to get some extra liquidity before moving down. I was playing very calmly and confidently. Everything was going well. I did move my stop loss down over here. It's a little bit premature due to what I mentioned before about for these kind of swing failure entries after all the momentum fading is confirmed, and I should give the trade some space to just hang around over here. So that was where I had placed my stop loss. Later on, I actually moved it back. So I was confident the overall thesis in the bigger time frame picture. So I was willing to let this sort of hanging around happen. So this was very clear in my plans, and I was playing perfectly according to that. It wasn't great to see the sharp buyer reaction, but I realized, I knew that I had to respect the swing failure entry, right? I had to respect the higher time frame buyers. So I was still confident in holding on to the trade, and I didn't remove any money. So the another good thing was this move up. It didn't just spike up all the way. It showed some resistance, showed some signs of reacting at the nearest resistance, which was a fantastic sign, right? It shows that the the consolidation and the move up over here, all these moves over here, the sellers are still in control. So I moved my SL back to the initial position and went to sleep. Felt a little bit of resignation or apathy to the outcome, right? And it's just like, I don't care what it does. I've done the right thing. That was my mindset. And I thought I had to move my stop loss back to the original position, I thought, because it just seemed like the best and logical move, and I still think that. And if it doesn't work out, it just means it's some more data to help me learn, or maybe it's just, the probabilities were not on my side. And this mindset is very, very good for me, and it's something I've been having very lately, right? And it's just making me trade a little bit more confidently and just focus more on making good moves, and just letting whatever happens happen. So I checked this a few times in the night, but in the morning when I woke up, I saw that, okay, price has come down, it's retested my entry, and it's still hanging around, right? And this is when I sort of just lost focus a little bit. In the morning, it just thought, okay, it still seems to be having some trouble to go down. Maybe the sellers, the buyers are going to go up, get some more liquidity, and potentially endanger my SL, right? That was the storyline. Now, of course, in addition to the high time frame buyers, what I kind of overlooked was these sell moves down are much stronger, so the sellers are still very much in control, right? Suggesting the buys are being absorbed. So, given this change in thinking now about, okay, there's probably going to be another move up to get some extra liquidity, and that may endanger my stop loss, I started looking for reasons for why that idea is logical and may come true. And so I noticed a clear change of the character, right? That's a change of character in the position over here. The direction of the support is not as strong as before, but there is still a struggle to go down, and there's good chances of a liquidity spike. So I just saw basically evidence of what I wanted to see, right? This was just illogical thinking. Some more failure to go down over here, some consolidation, goes high, breaks the high, right? That's what I noticed. But that's just completely wrong, because that situation was completely different. It wasn't at the key area. Why did I get into the trade? I got into the trade because it's at a fantastic area of where I anticipated the reaction, right? So even though I was anticipating a move up and I wanted to re-enter at a better price, I exited the trade right there due to this sort of change in thinking in the morning, right? And the exit is not really justified, because if I was so confident that this truly was going to go up, why didn't I trade that move up? Even if it's not on this pair, on some other pair, right? That would be true confidence of knowing that this is going up, right? But that didn't happen, suggesting that I just was more fearful of my SL getting hit, right? Or maybe not fearful, just I paid more weight to the risk of my SL being hit, rather than just letting the trade perform and playing good moves and keeping my SL intact. Because this sort of hanging around, especially for this kind of swing failure that has come up after slowing momentum, that is to be expected, which is what I've seen. And so I exited right there, and there seems to be a bit of a reaction at the support right over there, right? And now around this time I was thinking it's probably a good decision. It was probably a good decision to exit, because the buyers are holding grounds, right? But of course, the overall read was still accurate. And look at this. Price just hangs around over here and then finally crashes, and this was the biggest crash, I think, out of all the Aussie pairs, and I think there's still some way to go, so I might maybe looking for a re-entry over here early next week. So right here, yeah, that was all just a trap to shake some people out. For these kind of entries, the swing failure must be respected. So looking at correlating pairs may help, but I realize it has some limitations, and that's what I see over here. Looking at Aussie CAD and comparing with Aussie US. Aussie US reacted, a lot of hanging around, and then finally big move. Aussie CAD reacted a bit more strongly, a little bit of hanging around, and then the big move. But overall, the Aussie US move was bigger than the Aussie CAD move, and it still has more potential. What does this mean? This means that the structure, the price action structure, is more valuable to me because I'm interested in getting on the best pairs with the best potential to move in a large way. That's greatest potential to move, right? I'm interested in that, and I'm interested in getting the best prices, right? Which is why I focus a lot on swing failure type of entries lately, right? So what I learned from this is, I should be relying less. It's of course possible to use correlations to time the entries and everything, but especially on leader pairs and things like that, I should rely less on using a line correlation flow because that's just a lagging indicator, especially if I'm on a leading pair, right? So in those cases, the entry is almost always a little bit late. It's a price of confirmation of knowing of correlating it with the correlation flow, right? And what I have found is I can afford to play like that. I don't have to give so much weight to all the other pairs correlating so well, because my higher time frame bias and my higher time frame analysis is so good. I actually know where the big moves are likely to happen, right? So I just need to work on the management of those big moves, and I'm getting quite close to making some really nice R's every week. So those were the key learnings. Price action or logic outweighs the correlating factors. The best pair is not always the pair that is the first to have the big move. And if the focus is on trying to get the best prices, the pairs must be selected on the best market structure, not on correlation factors so much. That's what I found anyway. The next one was a gold trade, gold buy. I don't usually trade gold. It's just something I added to my repertoire. And this was actually probably my first gold trade, right? So price going to my area of interest with seemingly good and fading momentum, right? And I saw this real clear swing failure kind of spike, right? Because this moved down, up, down, and then just fails to break the low. That's a swing failure. So I saw that spike, and I was quite confident of taking the entry. And that confidence is a good thing because with whatever information I was aware of then, I was trading confidently, and that's important. The fact that some things actually passed my awareness, I was not aware of them, that's a different matter. The important thing, the fact that I was confident in this, maybe even with incomplete information, I view as a very good thing. So the reason I entered it was it looked like an excellent trap move. So I entered in a bit of a hurried fashion, right? Rushing to calculate my position size and everything like that. Because I had marked this area, but I had not set an alert. And so when I came back to this pair, just scanning, that's when I thought, oh yeah, this is about to go. So that's when I really rushed a little bit to get in. Only after the entry did I realize that this particular candle over here, that penultimate candle, is completely fake. It was due to a market gap, and this move up all happened within 1 minute, right? So that was probably a little bit fake as well, but I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that the fact that this move up was fake and unreliable until much later on. I just realized over here, okay, this is a gap, and that was still okay for my trade. In fact, this was a gap being closed, right? So I thought the trade had more chances of working. Of course, I forgot about the fact that the gold market is only open for 23 hours a day, right? That's a bit of a mistake because I was not aware of a key piece of market information because this is a new instrument for me. So I saw on my broker that the spike was nowhere near as big, right? And my conclusion from this was prices actually reached this FXCM market cap structure and gotten rejected strongly. So even on this, I thought, okay, prices actually sort of reacted from this area. So I thought this was still a reliable entry. Now I did notice that the spike did not really produce a reaction that swiftly took away any relevant support. This is a different thing to this kind of trade where price did not swiftly take away any key support, but neither did it actually react. So let's just see. Neither did it actually just reach a relevant support on the scale of the swing failure idea, right? So on the scale of the swing failure idea over here, which is like the 15 minutes, it's already reached a pretty key area of resistance. So for that reason, it didn't really take away any relevant resistance in this case, but I chose to ignore this. I think I was a little bit hopeful, but if I had not chosen to ignore this, it's pretty clear that, with the fake spike and the lack of follow-up of really breaking this area, it's clear that this stuff, the sellers boarding positions. So despite such extended sideways movement, I did not come to my senses to truly realize the significance of that until a little bit later around this area, right? So around here, I moved my SL, banking on this swing failure idea. Okay, so price coming down, maybe it's going to fail around here because it's already trapped some people over here. So if this truly fails, a strong move must come in around here. So I moved my stop loss then, which is very logical, and started to see some reaction. But around this point, I realized the FXCM and the Pepperstone prices were slightly different. Pepperstone was a bit higher, and that meant that when my FXCM SL got hit, Pepperstone's did not, even though it was in response to the same market structure, right? So even on the FXCM, I was seeing this kind of thing, and the SL had gotten hit. But due to the price discrepancies, I just stayed in. And so in future, for cases like this, my plan is to prioritize the structural considerations of price, not the actual prices for entries, exits, and analysis. I have to be very aware and challenge myself to cut back positions. Yep. So I got out at this SL after over here. And that was exactly when the swing failure thesis didn't work because there was no strong reaction up by the buyers, and it actually broke down. Now, it was a good exit, and I'm still interested to buy this, I think. So I'll have to check with some other stuff. But price is still in a pretty good area, and if this was just a big swing failure kind of thing, trapping some people over here once it break these lows, that retest over here may be a good entry for a buy all the way up to this top white line still. So looking back, I know knowing that the spike was completely fake, I know that there was genuinely no other entry for a buy, regardless of how low the time frames I go to, right? Because I do that and it works for me. But regardless of how low I go down the time frames, there was no valid entry for a buy if I strictly followed my rules. So that was a good sign to see. It gives me great confidence in my setups to keep me away from the false signals, and that's something I've been working on recently, and my false signals have cut down a lot. So this was the learnings from this trade. Pretty straightforward. Just know when the market opening and closing times are, and to avoid the effects of getting too hung up on an idea. This was useful for the Aussie-US trade as well. I should take short refresh breaks and just ask myself two questions. During these breaks, I just need to ask myself, why am I in this position? Like a boss in a prop trading firm who would ask you, why are you in this position? And when will I be proven wrong, right? When will I be truly proven wrong? So I'm going to implement that into my plan. Next trade is a missed trade. I missed this trade because I was a little bit, I was asking a bit too much from the market, and I failed to account for one key entry scenario. So price got into my area of interest, that's the rectangle. So that was all perfect. And due to the momentum of this bias, I even let some rollover happen. That was all perfect as well. So that was all good. So I did not simply take a trade around here. I thought due to these bias, it needs some time to roll over, build up some sellers positions. So I was getting some interest in there around here, right? And I had two scenarios in mind for my entry when this consolidation was happening. When this little small consolidation was happening. My scenarios were a swing high and a trap failure. So it needs to break that high, trap some people into the bias, and then fail. That would be one scenario for my entry. The next scenario was a clean break of this support, a clean strong break, and a retest, right? So that was the second scenario. Now, neither of those scenarios worked. Price just came down without breaking that high, trapping people, and it didn't come down extremely strongly, it just went back up. And what I think I opened up was this third scenario. And this third scenario works only, I think, because it aligns with the higher time frame view that a sell is likely to happen around here. So due to the higher time frame saying sell and the fact that I can easily take the sell just around this area, pretty with a decent stop loss above this high, right? I could easily take that sell and I'll be fine. But since I was looking for precision, I should be more open to scenarios where price will not exactly give me the perfect signal. And so I should be open in particular to this kind of miniature signal where the entry is on a retest of a miniature sellers putting up of positions, or on a strong breakout of this area. So that was what I learned about this. It's not just swing failure, strong breakout and retest. It's also inside that ranging action, any retest of some miniature building up positions, only if the high time frame bias aligns, right? So it's a pretty good learning for me. The third scenario is just what I missed. So I'll be looking for more setups that demonstrate the validity of that third scenario, but I think I've seen it sometimes before, but I've not recorded it so well, so that's why I wasn't aware of it during the trade. So next trade was USD CAD sell. In this one, this was not taken after my complete scan or anything, but I thought the setup is pretty good, so I should look to take it. That was my idea, that was my thinking. But in retrospect, it's probably better to have waited and faded this via reaction a little bit, because I absolutely hurried into this trade. Because my entry was, okay, I see that this high is broken and also it's reacting at a perfect breakout retest area, and this high is broken, so trapping some people into the bias as well. So I took the sell, thinking that once this breaks down, I just put a limit order and took the sell, which is just terrible because the breakdown was not confirmed. It did not extend for long enough. So that's the whole concept of multiple pullbacks up towards the breakout retest zone, and combined with the high momentum of these buyers, meant it was just a little bit too early. I should have waited for more rollover to happen. So my entry ended up actually being at a seller's swing trap area, right? The sell swing down didn't work, it made that low. So, but even though I realized that, like, immediately after my entry, I didn't get out because I thought there was still good chances that my SL would hold, and I could get out potentially on a small pullback and then the second push for the buyers. That was my thinking. And it was also partly due to hope and hesitation that my SL wouldn't hold. But I think that was okay. I think that was justified somewhat. So it's all happening at a seller's area. It's all happening at higher time frame resistance that I had already marked, right? And that's really been the key for me lately, and for my trades being more successful and good. I only take trades when it aligns with my higher time frame area. So of course I know some people may have taken trades at over here for the sells. Of course the sell worked, but for the scale that I'm looking at, I'm looking for a bigger sell, right? So I needed price to come over here. So I wasn't interested to sell at all around this point. I just wanted to wait for this. So I exited on the first pullback of this first buyer push-up, anticipating another further push-up. I think this was excellent read and micromanagement of the trade. I exited right there after confirmation that the buyers were kicking in again over here. This was also at the first test zone. So this is the move up, test, move up, and this is the first test area. And I have noticed, I have some stats on this, but I've noticed that the first test area, right, it's an extremely good place for further tests to come in, right? So this is after a confirmed reaction. Yeah, it's okay. Pretty simple learning here. I shouldn't be hasty, and I should always allow for some rollover to happen if the momentum is strong. Now, I did take a re-entry over here on this because again, I got out of this trade with the whole point of I need to take re-entries because the high time frame view is still valid, and as long as that view is valid, I should take re-entries. That was my thinking. So again, I had not completely done my scans. I was still stalking this trade very closely, right? So good trade entry. No, that is a good trade entry. That should be a yes. Should be a yes. I'll change that later. So this was my re-entry plan. I actually planned for the re-entry, which is which shows that I was still thinking quite logically, despite that initial mistake of impatience and hurriedness. So my criteria was I need price to come in this zone over here. Pretty big zone, but I needed price to come at least higher than this area. So I will be looking for price action around that area. The first key point to look for in terms of entries based on price being in this area was a swing failure, a buyer's swing failure, of it just penetrating this high and coming back down. The other scenario I was looking for entries was if it doesn't go to that area, if there is no valid entry set up for me there, I need to wait for a clean breakout down and a retest, and that would be my entry. And of course, this was my re-entry plan, but I still kind of overlooked the fact that from the higher time frame perspective, this probably needs a little bit more time to roll over, right? So this shows that I was still in the zone of the first trade and just looking for a better price to basically enter the first trade, which I think was a slight mistake in planning because I didn't zoom out, but execution-wise it was okay because there's nothing to really stop me from taking the sells at least on this scale, even though it's not exactly within my plan of trading 3-minute setups exclusively. The fact that this 3-minute is happening in a higher time frame relevant area suggests that it was okay, even if this 3-minute sell on the high time frame area was not the big breakout sell for the daily for the 240 move or the 60 move. It still would have made some money. So I got in when price made a swing failure of that high. It was exactly the scenario I had in mind over here as one of the scenarios. So this was an entry where I was just looking for a small retest over here, and that's what I got, and I entered stop loss at a logical, very logical area based on when this swing failure idea would be invalidated. Now I took the entry the same size as my initial entry due to reduce my risk, and also because if this move truly forms, I could still allow for deeper pullbacks to happen if I was still confident in the swing failure in the higher time frame picture, in the higher time frame setup, by extending my stop loss up to the higher time frame relevant area. But for this particular entry, the first point of invalidation is this area. So this was the most logical area for me to place my SL. Now, maybe later I could have extended myself based on price action. So there's a little bit advanced in terms of how to manage the stop loss, but I think it was very logical. The momentum of the buyers has truly slowed down over here, which is why I could take this little swing failure entry right there. Now, that again was a little bit of a mistake similar to Aussie US. The fact that momentum of the buyers had slowed down and I took the swing failure entry, I should let price perform, right? I should anticipate that there may be hanging around some scares of strong buys coming in, but as long as this SR holds, the sells are still on. Similarly to Aussie US, as long as the top SR held, the sell was still on due to the nature of this entry, right? The swing failure entry. So that was the thing that I sort of overlooked again, because, very strong move up. This strong move down didn't really break anything just yet, just really strong move up. And I thought there's probably going to be one more strong move up, so I exited right there. But and after this, I didn't really look for any further entries because it was a Friday. It's not in the right move, and more importantly, doing so would be going against the plan that is looking for shorter term plays when the higher time frame rollover is yet to happen. Because after I exited the trade, I realized probably more higher time frame rollover, and I didn't want to take the weekend gap risk. So the important learning theme here really is the true invalidation points for swing failure entries. When to let the SO remain and let the choppiness happen, and when to be really strict on how price reacts from an area, right? It's a very key learning for me this week. So it would have been a pretty decent trade, that one. I think a nice 3-hour trade or something like that, if I just respected the swing failure entry, because all the signs suggested I should have, right? So, and of course, because if I wanted to not increase my risk, I must respect minute 15 volatility, because this entry was not at a higher time frame relevant stop loss area. Higher time frame relevant stop loss was my initial stop loss area over here. Currently, of course, I think the rollover we can safely say has happened, especially seeing the strong reaction. I'll be looking for probably one more reaction by the buyers around this area and then a sell. Let's see how this goes on Monday, especially given the weekend gap and all things like that. So I'm really interested in this just as an additional note because of this weekly picture. All of my trades, all of my scans and everything, they always take in the whole picture from the monthly down to whatever time frame. So that's why I think I have a very good understanding of where price is and where the reactions are likely to happen and the potential for those reactions. My anticipations for those have been extremely good. So I'm really interested in this sell because it's reacting in the perfect area and it's trapped some buyers over here, and probably this is going to be moved down. There is a small bit of risk though, because the yellow lines mark my monthly levels, right? And I thought it's likely that price can go just a little bit higher, touch the yellow line and come back down. So I'm still treating this setup on the lower time frames as a H1 kind of sell, not just yet weekly sell. probably need a little bit more confirmation on that. So these were the key learnings of the US CAD trade. I thought initially that I was going against my plan in taking the re-entry, but the fact that I can take the re-entry and respect the relevant time frame scales SL, if I can do that, these sort of 1 minute re-entries are allowed for me in my plan. So I'm going to amend my plan to reflect the fact that these re-entries based on precision time frame setups must be allowed. So again, this very key common learning theme. So overall main learnings here were characteristic of trade invalidation signs for my different entry types, and I've defined my entry types very clearly. So those were it. Price action, something about correlation, something about market structure also based on correlation, knowledge of market instrument types, genuine checking for genuineness of market structure, and validity of swing failure moves if it fails at the time frame relevant SR, if it fails to break that. And yeah, the 3 entry scenarios when prices at a key higher time frame zone, and of course re-entries on lower time frame setups. Those are the key learnings. That's all. Thanks, and comments and questions are very much welcome.